on that later on. 087 77 11 103 is a number. Last week we spoke to Sharon Briggs from People Before Profit about this occupation of Bray Town Council. Initially 10 people looking for accommodation because of the closure of a house in Bray. Some people have been fixed up. There are people not fixed up as yet, and there seems to be some dispute in the accounts of what exactly is happening. From Wicklow County Council, the chairman is on here, John Ryan. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Declan. How are you?
Good morning to you. We just got an update of from People Before Profit, or at least somebody associated with what's going on at Bray County Buildings. And I'll just read it to you anyway so you can just get an idea of what they're talking about. They're talking about two homeless people there. They've been receiving water by means of a tube through a 2 cm opening in one of the windows. They are very weak, but they are hydrated. In what may be a glimmer of hope, a council member posed an offer to the two guys to stay in a hotel in Wicklow for the night with the option of negotiating with housing staff today. I think the statement was issued yesterday. After being treated with absolute disdain by Wicklow County Council and what the council staff have put the guys through since Thursday, these two people have chosen to remain in the building. People Before Profit representatives Anna Doyle and Sharon Briggs are supporting the guys' choice to continue their protest. There has been a swell of support, and their continued plight to be housed is been taken on board by many people, and Anna and Sharon are urging anyone in Bray to drop by and show their support. So that is the latest from their side. I know that there is a statement from Wicklow County Council. Perhaps you'd tell us what your understanding is of the background to this issue when it started and where we are now.
Yeah, well, Declan, it's obviously a very difficult situation, as you know. Housing is our number one issue, and as a council we're just doing absolutely everything we possibly can through building houses, through working with housing associations, to working with intervening in the market and actually buying properties to bring as much on as possible. We've got a huge housing list. It is, as I said, the number one issue. We've got emergency accommodation. Obviously the Brighton Terrace emergency accommodation had to be closed because that model where you have kind of 16 people in one location, the residents in the area were really finding it impossible. And the experts in this area have said to us that basically that way of dealing with emergency accommodation doesn't actually work. That a much better approach is to have smaller units of 2 or 3 or 4 people, where you engage with the likes of Simon Community, who actually will visit and make sure that everything is run properly and people are keeping to the rules. So that's the model we've gone with. So Brighton Terrace was closed down, and virtually everybody engaged with Wicklow County Council, and once they engaged, they've been actually found accommodation and dealt with. I know if people engage, we can resolve the issues, and that's what we've been doing all over the county with all the issues. And I'd just like to really, the people in Wicklow County Council, particularly the housing staff, they've been under such pressure, and they have been showing an immense amount of empathy towards the everybody who is coming there. And I see it firsthand because they're talking to me constantly about the cases and the difficulties they face. And we've been in with the department in the Custom House, negotiating face to face to get more resources to be able to provide people with housing accommodation in Wicklow.
Okay, so, and the two guys?
Yeah, obviously this situation, occurred on Thursday, and again, we're trying to work with everybody, and once they work with us, it'll be resolved. So I know 2 members of staff went to them and made the offer to sort of say the only emergency accommodation that we can provide at the moment is in Wicklow, and there was room for them to go there, and we were going to provide transport to get them down there. And with the aim of obviously trying to get them into private accommodation and get a long-term solution to this, which is what we're trying to do with absolutely everybody. But I think if anybody believes that, by coming into the Bray Town Council offices and saying we're not leaving until we get, accommodation, that they actually will, jump up to the top of the list, that simply is impossible. and it would be madly unfair to everybody else who's working with the council and working with the lift. So,
yeah, but hold on, the building was closed down. Yeah, I know it was health and safety and all that sort of stuff, and they had to leave the building, but surely that is an acute situation that had arisen because the accommodation they were in closed down, so you make provision, therefore, as a result of that.
Well, no, as I said, everybody who was in that facility, who engaged with Wicklow County Council, because obviously we had to sit with everybody who was in there and sort of say, okay, so what are we going to do with regard to you? Everybody was housed. So, and the council will house, they'll find accommodation. There's no need to be, sleeping rough on the streets, because the council have been absolutely fantastic in terms of working day and night to ensure that we don't have that. But sometimes, Declan, some people choose not to engage with the council. And honestly, there's nothing we can do. And also, obviously, and I'm talking broadly now, not specifically, but, in terms of the emergency accommodation we provide, in some cases, some people, they have to keep the rules because basically these operations won't be in operation because obviously, they're in areas, residential areas. We have to make sure that the other people in those areas are actually supportive of the emergency accommodation been cited there. And the only way they'll do that is if they feel it's been run professionally and that people are keeping to the rules. And if people don't keep to the rules, effectively they're making themselves homeless, and there's really nothing we can do as a council in a situation like that. I mean,
so how are you going to resolve this? You've got two people in county buildings at the moment, or at least Bray Town Council buildings. How are you going to resolve it?
Yeah, so I mean, what we're obviously doing is we're trying to go and talk to them and encourage them and sort of say, listen, will you just work with us on this? Let's finish this, because this is obviously, it's a disaster for the individuals to be sitting there without, food. I know there is water, there's toilet facilities and all that, so that's absolutely fine. But from the point of view that we don't want this to be continuing, we want this to absolutely finish. But, I don't know what kind of advice they're getting, but please, if from my point of view, I just advise them to just engage with the homeless services that we have here, because they're brilliant people who are hugely passionate about doing their job with great empathy, and they've been so successful in incredibly difficult circumstances. Actually, and these are the experts of Simon who are dealing with this all over the country, and they understand what's required. We want to resolve this, and I would really just ask the lads if they'll just actually turn around and say, okay, we've made our point, let's finish, let's engage. And, there was supposed to be a meeting today. Obviously, the guys maybe they've been advised not to go. I'm not sure what the story is, but if I could ask them, just sort of, will you just please engage with the homeless service, and we'll get you in the emergency accommodation, and we'll try and find a further route to get you private rented accommodation, as we're doing with everybody on the housing list in County Wicklow.
Yeah, it seems strange, and it might seem strange to some people, that they were living in a house in Bray and they were told to leave because it was unsuitable. And at the moment, they've been offered to stay in a hotel in Wicklow, to be bused to it. And, they had to negotiate then for the future from Wicklow. I mean, that's a good bit away. I don't know what, families they have, or what backup they have in the community or whatever, but moving from Bray to Wicklow, that doesn't seem right, does it?
Sure, no, it's not ideal. And unfortunately, I'd love to say to you, Declan, that anybody who becomes homeless in Bray, that we'll be able to supply them with, a house in Bray, accommodation in Bray, emergency accommodation in Bray. Plain and simply, that's not the case. We have, as I said, we're actually trying to drive forward a multiple approach of solutions that hopefully will, in the future, be able to ensure that people who are made homeless in Bray for whatever reason will be able to be housed in the greater Bray area. And that's what we're working hard to do, to try and produce those emergency accommodation solutions. But just at the moment, in terms of, our hands are slightly tied in this, and what we're trying to do is make sure that they get a bed and a safe place to be, rather than being on the streets. We absolutely do not want anybody in this county to feel that they...
And John, the 10 people that had to leave that building, are there any of them that are sleeping on the seafront?
No, my understanding is that all of those people who engaged with the services were given accommodation immediately. I know maybe I don't know if that one of them is still in that the accommodation they went to. But at that time, in terms of providing a solution to them, they weren't. Please believe me, they weren't just dumped on the streets and we closed down that building. That's not the way the council operate. The council engaged with all of them who would engage with the council. One of them didn't want to engage, and it's impossible for us to deal with people who don't want to engage with us, plain and simply. But for all of the others, they all got accommodation, and that's really important to us. As I said, brilliant people working here. I want the people of Wicklow to understand that there's no lack of empathy. This is not a council who are trying to, be hard on people. We're actually going out of our way and bending over backwards to work with everybody who's been made homeless. It's a horrible position for those people to be in, and there's unfortunately too many people across this county and country who are in that situation. We are where we are. All we can do is actually try and provide solutions to them as fast as possible. So again, I would just please ask the two lads to engage with us so we can actually work out a solution, and let's just close this sorry event of them being in the council offices. And obviously,
but it started with them out on the street. It started with them being...
Say that again?
It started with them being out on the street from a building that they were staying in, so we can't lose sight of that.
Declan, as I say, once people engage with us, we'll get them accommodation. And that's been delivered on. But one of them chose not to engage with the council, so there's nothing honestly we can do if people don't engage with us. And then the other was a different circumstance. So,
okay.
I can't go into the details of it. I hope you understand that, because obviously data protection and the like, and I want to be respectful of everybody in this situation. But all I just want, a big message is, council are going out of their way to resolve any of the issues faced by people who have been made homeless across this country.
All right.
They're really caring
John,
people,
and we'll keep in contact. Okay, thank you. That's John Ryan there, the chair of Wicklow County Council. Our number is 087 77 11 103.